Hello, hello, hello again, and happy Friday. Oh, goodness. I say happy Friday to you. It's actually the day before for me as recording this, simply because tomorrow, during when this recording is usually shot and provided, guess what? I'll be working with an organization and doing a workshop. So I definitely did not want to finish our last Friday in Black History Month without leaving you with one critical key tip, and that is around recruitment. So there are two themes, our topics that we talked about earlier in the month, and I actually want to combine those two to share with you around key points around recruitment. So again, I'm talking to my audience of HR and DE&I professionals, and really those that particularly lead recruitment engagements and initiatives for your companies or organizations. So the first topic that I want to gently remind you of is earlier in the month, we talked about don't put the cart before the horse. So as you are running out and trying to do that diverse recruiting and get candidates in your door, or at least into your interview pipeline, that are diverse, that are different genders or ethnicities or races or cultures than what your typical makeup is of your current population and staff at your organization or company. I get it, well intentioned, but be sure to not put the cart before the horse, because if you get all those folks in there and you hire them, it will be a revolving door pretty quickly, and they'll be in and out in about 3 years' time. It's probably about average from what I've seen. Of where they get in, look around, and realize that there's no one here like me, not getting mentorship opportunities, I'm not getting sponsored. I see the folks at the top, again, don't look like me. So what are my odds of being able to be successful here? And those little things start playing around, and then they'll start looking around and asking themselves questions and connecting with other diverse colleagues. And when they start getting together and comparing notes and it's not favorable, they're out the door. So no need to waste your recruiting dollars, time, effort, and energy. Start with creating inclusion right now where you're at with who you have, with your staff and who you have now. And so we already talked about that. But if you are at the point where you have done that work and you are ready to really be intentional and thoughtful and considerate and strategic about going after diversifying your workforce with different identities, then you got to get creative about connecting with other folks that are in that space so that you can forge a real relationship. Now, what I've seen is, again, well intentioned organizations will go out and they'll kind of do one or two things. They'll go out to a career fair in the local community, or maybe they'll travel to an HBCU or an organization that has the population that they're seeking to bring into their company. They'll go out and they'll send what I would call like the wrong people. And that's one of two sides, right? They'll go out and send well-intentioned folks, but they haven't trained them on cultural diversity or cultural sensitivity. And they're looking to figure out a way to connect with these potential candidates or students. And it's awkward, it's inauthentic. And again, those candidates or students will just go right past your table because they're smelling really quickly that this is not an organization that I want to be a part of. They're well intended, they've done some work, but just by talking to them or looking at who they're presenting, I don't know, right? Secondly, organizations will send the few African American or Hispanic or women that they have out to career fairs, out to employment fairs, and it'll give the misperception that, hey, this organization employs a lot of folks that look like me. And then when they get hired and land in the spot, it's kind of like Dorothy, Landon, and Oz. And they're looking around like, wait a minute, right? Now, when they land there or as they're going through that recruiting process, I would encourage you to do the second principle that we talked about last week, which is honesty, being transparent, being authentic, and saying, hey, look, we know we don't have a diverse workforce. We are intentionally and strategically trying to change that. And here's the work that we've done thus far on ourselves in order to be a more inclusive environment, so that when you do come here, number one, you're not the only one for too long, and secondly, we have processes in place, we have trainings in place, we have programs in place to support you and to support all of our staff with the proper inclusion and training techniques and things like that. So those are the two principles that I want you to combine together when you're thinking about recruitment. Think, am I putting the cart before the horse? If so, let me back up and go back to the beginning. And then two, if we do feel like we have matured and we're ready, then let's be completely transparent and authentic and honest from scratch, right? From the moment, from the very first interaction, all the way through the interview and recruiting process, that here is the work that we've done. Here's the work that we are actively doing. And yes, you might very well be underrepresented for now, but we intend to change that. So let me give you a quick real world honest example that happened to me personally that will help share some insight into, I'm not just preaching here, I actually practice this. So I was a hiring manager, and I was on a phone screen with an individual. Let's call him James, okay? And James asked me very candidly what the company's policy was and stance on around DE&I. And this is long before 2020. This is long before it was a cool buzzword, or folks were, had it on their website or anything like that, long before that. And he asked, was there someone in HR or in the organization that was tasked or focused on inclusion for employees? What was our training like? What was our onboarding look like? All phenomenal questions, right? And then he asked me the hardest question that I think I've ever been asked as a hiring manager, which was, and I'm paraphrasing here, he said, let me ask you this. Is this an organization where I would be comfortable putting a picture of my husband on my desk? I took a step back and I thought about it. I had to actually think, well, my colleagues, my peers, my supervisors, the folks on the team, the folks in the department, the customers that we serve. I'm doing a mental quick go down to see, have there been any inappropriate jokes? Are there other people that are in a same-sex relationship that are open about their partners and bring their partners or spouses or significant others to the company picnic and events and volunteers that we've done? I'm kind of mentally in like, a quick 20 seconds trying to go through and think of instances where our organization was openly supportive or openly hostile, right? And so I took a deep breath, and it was a really good candidate, so I was hoping not to lose him. I took a deep breath and I said, you know what, James, that is a phenomenal question. I have never been asked that. And the silence that you just experienced from me was me thinking, are we a supportive environment or not? And I'm going to be completely honest with you. I do not know. I don't know. I personally have never, because I personally am heterosexual, I have never witnessed, seen, experienced, been around any inappropriate remarks or comments or jokes or anything that of that nature. But because I am heterosexual, I either may have missed it, it may have been there and I didn't pick up on it, absolutely possible. Or two, maybe it just didn't flow in my area because that's because of the nature of the status I am in the organization. And, somebody would never maybe make a joke like that around me. So I'm taking all that into consideration to say, you know what? I personally haven't witnessed it or seen it that I was consciously aware of. Doesn't mean that it's not here. So I don't know. I don't want to sell this guy a bill of goods and come to find out it does end up being a hostile environment the moment he puts his husband's picture up there. So I can't say that definitively. I said, but what I can tell you, James, is that I can speak for myself personally, and I can speak for my team that we are inclusive, and that will absolutely not be a problem if you join my team. and should something come up, an incident occur, I can absolutely promise you that it is something that if you experience, you can come to me and we will resolve it together. And that I can vouch for, right? So I can speak for myself, and I can speak for the environment that I created and cultivated on that team. And I could assure him that for everything that was in my personal control, that there would not be an issue, and should one arise, that he would not be alone in dealing with it. Okay? Again, open, honest, candid, right? It takes a high level of emotional intelligence from your supervisors and your hiring managers to have that level of authenticity and honesty with their staff and with the people that are on their teams to develop them. So guess what, y'all? How you promote and who's sitting in the seat of upper management, those that have some sort of professional development oversight for teams, you're going to have to get folks pretty quickly, like overnight. You're going to have to get that emotional intelligence up. And if it's not possible, if they're not taking the training, if they're not advancing, if they're not progressing, if they're not maturing and practicing and upping that skill on emotional intelligence, then it's time for them to exit that seat, right? Not saying that they need to exit the company, but they need to relinquish that responsibility of being over people. And that's something that we don't do well at all in companies and organizations. Folks are promoted primarily because of the skill and the thing that they do, right? Whether it's coding, whether it's processing, whether it's selling, whether it's marketing, whether it's creating documents or creating a product, whatever it is that they're good at, that's great. But it doesn't necessarily make them a good people person. It doesn't necessarily give them the emotional intelligence required to be authentic and candid and transparent, and to think through the words that are coming out of my mouth. How is that going to land on the person that I'm talking to? Their awareness of themselves and others doesn't give them that skill. It can be acquired. It can be practiced. However, you have to set the bar. Those of you who I'm talking to that are in HR and DE&I, you get to set the bar and then reward those that are skilling and leveling up or demonstrating those competencies. And conversely, you're going to have to put in some processes and mechanisms to exit people from the seats that are not exhibiting those competencies. And that's what we don't do well. We have to have both, okay? Must be both for this to work. There's a whole lot of focus on the one, which is emotional intelligence and sending managers to training and getting them. mm, that's all fine, well, and dandy. But you're not going to see true movement until you start exiting those from the seat that are not responsible, that are not gaining those skills, and that are not actively demonstrating those skills to their employees. Okay. All right. So with that, again, happy Black History Month. Happy February. And we will be here same time, same bat channel next Friday, 12:30 Eastern, with a whole new topic, because it's a whole new month and it's going to be Women's History Month. And y'all know I got a lot to say. All right. Take care. And thank you all. Again, reach out to info@angelspeaking.com so we can talk about keynotes, workshops, inclusive manager training, and anything else that we can support you in either starting or maturing your inclusion journey. Bye now.